welcome to another session of Coffee and Careers. For any newcomers out there, my name is Trish, and Coffee and Careers is a learning platform inspired by Dr. Casey Bradley. The goal is to create something which allows animal science students and professionals alike to be able to network and share and ask questions, and in a sense, ease the transition from university into working into the industry. So today, I guess we all know that regardless the kind of work you do or the role that you're in, networking is a key determining factor that really levels up your success. And today we have an expert in just that, networking. So today we've got Ashley Owens, and Ashley has given over 1,000 introductions. She's taken more than 700 introductory calls with business professionals looking to grow their network. She is a tactical networking expert, brand and business ambassador, and Ashley is a strategic partner to many different kinds of organizations. A successful coach and trainer, Ashley started her business and personal networking by putting her expertise in customer service, account management, and business development to good use. So Ashley wears many hats, but ultimately, Ashley's job is to be your advocate, to champion your business, and to remind people why they got started. Ashley has been interviewed on the Mel Robbins Show on CBS. She's got 2 digital talk shows and has over 185 referral partners. So today, to educate us all on tactical networking and how to network like a boss, please welcome Ashley Owens.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Trish. That was a great, I liked your your bio than my own, and you kind of mushed a bunch of things together, which is really nice. So if you've got a copy of that, I would like that because that was lovely. Thank you, everybody. You're the best, Trish. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. If you don't mind turning your cameras on, I'm super shy. So I also just want to see the backgrounds of your houses so I can quietly, pick at it for a little bit. So if you can put yourselves on a camera, that'd be great. This is going to be an interactive session. I know it's kind of early. Thank you, Siobhan. See, Siobhan follows directions, crushes it. Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate it. Wonderful. We're going to talk about networking like a boss. And what this really means is being able to be very tactical. Wes, I see you. Thank you very much. Being very tactical about your networking activities, because sometimes networking just sucks. Sometimes it's real tough. And sometimes we just don't want to hang out and actually have conversations with people. And I understand the fear that goes into that. Yes, I am an extrovert, but I did not get this way by being an extrovert, by always being an extrovert. So the main point about this program we're going to talk about today is you're going to be able to cherry pick from things that make sense for you. You're going to get a ton of information. Don't worry about taking notes. You're welcome to, but I'm going to provide a link to a hidden page. So that way you can get all of the necessary information from this presentation, as well as helpful resources that I also reference in this presentation. So thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. I can't share my screen while other participant is sharing. So if you can stop sharing for just a moment. Case or Trish, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay. Give me 2 seconds. Got 2 screens here, so we're going to make it fun. You guys can see the screen, correct? Case, we're good? Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. All right, so we just heard about a ton of things about me, but let's do some fun facts just because that's how networking really is getting to know something new. So let's do this. I'm originally from North Jersey, which just means I'm a real fast talker and I've got the best bagels. I'm coming from Jersey, but let me tell you, all the Jews and the Italians, they come from New York and then they plop themselves into North Jersey. So I can know a really good croissant, or I can go to New York and get them. Otherwise, I haven't found a good bagel in Pennsylvania yet. I have no kids, a very fat cat. So if you hear a small child crying at some point during this presentation, that is my fat cat wanting second breakfast. Just ignore him like I do. Previously, I was a celebrity personal assistant, which just means I have a lot of therapy bills and I know how to navigate New York pretty well. I've competed in CrossFit competitions. Honestly, when I was really good at it, I could deadlift 225 one time and then cry in a corner quietly. But I came in 31st place out of 34 in a competition, which just means I survived it. Don't clap. It's pretty embarrassing. Karaoke Champ 2016, to be fair, it was at my bachelorette party. I have since been divorced, so that'll tell you what that means. Been in 12 movies as an extra. Casey. Been in 12 movies as an extra, which just means I can sleep really anywhere up against any hard surface. When you're an extra in different movies, they get you on set for about 12 to 16 hours. So I got a chance to learn more about the movie business in that area, but otherwise, the only cool skill I gained from that is I can really just take these little micro naps and sleep on any surface. And then I once ate a Carolina Reaper. Does anybody know what a Carolina Reaper is?
You survived it, so.
And I'm not dead yet. Jack, I think you're nodding. Do you know what a Carolina Reaper is? Oh, you gotta turn yourself off and mute, darling.
It's just one of the hottest peppers around, so.
It's a bad life choice. That's what that is.
Yeah, well,
I was going to say, as a nutritionist, how did that digestive tract survive?
It did. It was a story and a half. That's not appropriate for this kind of professional presentation I'm giving today. But thank you very much for asking, Jack. Thank you for your participation. You get a gold star. All right, folks. All right, this is the interactive session. Do me a favor. I need to kind of gauge the audience. This is purely for me just to understand where you guys are at. How stressful for you is networking on a scale of like 1 to 10? 10 being the worst. 10 being like super duper scared, having a panic attack in a parking lot, which I think everybody needs to at one point in their lives. Let me just tell you, it happens. You guys can take yourselves off mute and tell me why. Or you can put it in the chat. I'd be happy to answer that as well. 3, Caroline, you're 3, would mean 7, Catherine Wells, Siobhan, 7-7, Wes, you're 3, 6-6-6. Cool. Awesome. 4-3. Thank you. I feel like I'm.
It's a 1 now, thanks to Ashley.
Oh, okay. It sounds so fancy. Thank you very much. 7. Hey, Ashley Moss, would you mind taking yourself off mute, honey, and tell me why it's a 7?
I just feel like I'm a 7. I can usually go out there and talk to a bunch of people. Don't have too much issues.
Yeah. Okay. No, 10 is the worst. So like on a scale of how.
Oh, well, then I should be a 3.
Okay.
My bad.
No problem. Beth, you were an 8.5. Is that correct? Would you mind telling me why?
I guess I've just never been very good at like small talk, so just kind of doing those conversations are stressful.
Yeah, I get that, man. Like sometimes when I'm in a conversation with somebody, especially when I first started, really understanding how to navigate a conversation, because I get it. Some people suck real bad. Like they're not good at communicating effectively. So, but there's also a fear that comes with that, right? There's like, I feel like I have to tell you the cool things about me and then you have to reciprocate. And they're like, I have like 3 cool things that my mom said I was cool about and I don't know what else to tell you, right? I get it. Awesome. Thank you very much for your participation, Beth. You're the best. Awesome. Okay, so it's kind of like a mix, which is great. Beth, put yourself back. I love your background, Beth. Can I see you? Thank you, girlie. You look great today. You look super comfy. I need that jacket. All right, here we go. Agenda. So what we're going to go through today, again, I talked about being very just really cherry picking from the things that make sense for you. Networking is a personal activity. It's not a one size fits all type thing. So when you're communicating and networking with another individual, you have to remember that like there are opportunities to build relationships by actually just being a person. So I really want you to take away the stress of feeling like you have to prove yourself or to just show value every single time of like why you're valuable. What I want you to do is just have a conversation, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to buy from you or nobody's going to want to connect with you if you haven't built up the know, the like, and the trust factor. We're going to go more into that or touch on it a little bit, but think about it. When you're networking or you're communicating internally with somebody, let's say within your own organization, there's going to be, nobody cares about what you do. Nobody cares. Really, truly, nobody cares. They care what you can do for them. And it's vice versa. So how do you build up a relationship that you can build the know, like, and trust factor and give value at the same time? So we're going to go through a couple things, the reality of networking, because everyone talks about building relationships, but it's like, how do you do that? How do you do that? Right? Steps to get started, knowing yourself, because sometimes that's unless you're in therapy, it's a little hard to digest. Knowing your audience, planning your work and working your plan, tools and resources, and questions on how I can help. So if you have questions, interactive session, no question is dumb. No question is, because she's an expert, she's not going to understand. Let's talk about it, because I want to have these conversations with you to really understand how I can help directly. I have put my foot, just as an FYI, I have put my foot in my mouth more often than I think any of you have, because I just talk a lot. So if we're talking about being embarrassed, don't. I am the queen of that. Awesome. All right. Hey, Caroline has a question. I think you might want to answer that. I think she's having trouble with Zoom. Cool. Here's the problem with people, because people sometimes suck for you. Here's what the norm is right now. Most professionals are operating virtually, right? So that really means that we are trying to learn a different form of communicating by doing things virtually. The enthusiasm around talking to somebody new, or at least trying to gauge how to communicate, can be really frustrating and stressful. And plus, sometimes, again, just like we see here, technology can be kind of a pain in the butt. And unless it's working 100% of the time, sometimes it can give off a bad, not even a bad reputation, but more of a conflicting way of communicating, right? Because you're not always, I'm enthusiastic because I've got 17 cups of coffee in me, which I prep for before I do these things. But otherwise, sometimes things can get lost in translation, right? Or you've got, somebody not having a clue how to join a webinar, and then you got to talk to them about the whole thing. It's a whole, like, scroll down, Carl, please. Just scroll down in the email, click the link, we'll be good to go. It's not always easy for everybody. So being able to network virtually sometimes might be a little challenging in the beginning. And then, are you able to connect with new people? So by connecting with new people, how does that compare to meeting somebody in person? And then, to Beth's point, sometimes the small talk can be even more awkward when you're doing things virtually. And then, are pants optional? Because apparently that's a thing now. People don't wear pants on calls. I don't get it. It's always Darren who just forgets he's not wearing pants. All right, here's the reality, okay? Now, when you're building up a network, when you're identifying ways to truly build up people that will advocate for you when you're not in the room, you really want to make sure, before you even consider keeping them in your sphere of influence, or people that you want to back you up, do they do these three things? Only people who actually genuinely care are going to talk to you and not at you, like an Italian mother during Christmas time asking when you're going to have kids. Or only generally people who care are going to help you anyway. You don't have to beg for their help. You don't have to ask them, say, hey, because if I do this, will you do this? People who genuinely care are people that are called givers. These givers will identify ways to bring you value and help you with a resource, with an introduction, something of that nature. They're in their bones, they want to help. And then only people who genuinely care will ask you for realistic favors. I'm not saying ask them for a $10,000 sponsorship for an event that may or may not happen, right? Or, hey, would you mind, picking up my dry cleaning, going and get my kids, and then, making me dinner? Like, that's an unrealistic favor, right? So when you start to build up people in that to even consider them to be in your influence, make sure that they hit these top things, because that foundation means that they actually give a damn. And if they care, they're going to help you more throughout the entirety of your networking growth. So here's a question. You can throw these in the chat, no problem. What is the maximum number of people that we can maintain relationships with and have social interactions with? What do you guys think? Number-wise.
20?
Have I taught you nothing?
No, I know. I mean,
If you guys can throw it in the chat. Casey's cheating. 50, close. Catherine, you're close, darling. Keep going, folks. 30. Siobhan, nope. Oh, Morgan, you're even closer.
I started low on purpose, Ashley. I'm helping.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. 80, close. 80, Patricia, you're close. Ellen, close. The number is 150. And the reason why it's 150 is because there's a theory by British anthropologist Robin Dunbar. And what they're talking about here in this theory is that the tightest circle has just 5 people. Those are loved ones. Then that's followed by a successive layer of 15 good friends, 50 friends, 150 meaningful contacts, 500 acquaintances, and then 1,500 people that you can recognize. Now, People might migrate in and out of these layers, but the idea is that they have to be carved out for anybody new to come in. So if you exceed 150, a network is unlikely to last long or cohere well. So think about that when you're meeting with somebody new, or if you're trying to get the attention of somebody that could potentially help you down the line. They really have to hit these top 3 things, and you don't have to talk to every single Joe, Dick, and Harry. Okay?
Number one Casey mistake, talking to everybody.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. So here's a story time, right? So now that you understand like what your boundaries are for keeping people like in your network, let's think about the way that you're communicating and why it's important to be able to communicate effectively with these people. So let's talk about a story. So everyone knows Paul Revere, right? You all know Paul Revere. He rode from Boston, 1775, rode north, raised a militia, right? He sounded the alarm for the Revolutionary War. William Dawes did the exact same thing, except he rode south, which doesn't really matter in this instance, but his messaging was the same. The reason why history remembers Paul Revere is because Paul Revere was an information broker. An information broker is a person who occupies a key role in a social network by connecting unrelated groups of people. So when he targeted well-connected people during his ride, the news then spread, wildly and very quickly. William Dawes was not an information broker. He didn't know what doors to knock down and when he entered that small town. Okay, so the moral of the story is take this into consideration with your own skill sets, with your own businesses, with whatever you're working on as of value. If that information is not delivered to the right people, it will fall into obscurity just like William Dawes. So now that you guys have an understanding of why you're communicating effectively, let's think about what your networking goal actually is. So everything on this page that you see here, these are identifiable networking activities. It's not just picking up the phone and talking to somebody. It is actually identifying ways that you can continue to maintain and nurture the kinds of people you already have in your network. But to do that, you need to build engagement on your LinkedIn profile. If you're a subject matter expert in your field, or even have thoughtful, intentional content that you know you can put out, that's what you should be doing on your LinkedIn profile because people are checking you out. Are you staying in front of your current network with, again, that thoughtful content? So if you've got a really great article that you've written, if you've done a podcast, if you've done Casey's podcast, whatever it may be, keeping in front of your current network by connecting with those right people on LinkedIn is a great way for them to see what's going on. Are you building new professional friendships? Again, low-hanging fruit is very important to build up your tier 1 and tier 2 people when it comes to building a network. However, are you building new professional relationships, which means that you have to support them in some way? Commenting on their article, reaching out to say, hey, I've got this event or this networking group I think you'd be really interested in. Providing value is the foundation of networking. Are you reaching out to past clients or vendors or colleagues and checking in? Now, I'm talking about checking in as you're going into the conversation hot, which means that you've got a resource or a tool or something that you can share with them that could potentially help them grow their business or just help them personally because you took the second to think, how can I really make this person's day? Are you learning and developing a new skill from a local subject matter expert? Guess what? Subject matter experts right now have no gatekeepers because everyone's home. So if you go and reach out to them via LinkedIn, send a message, Casey has done this before, and just started the conversation to say, I would love to learn more about how you got started in this business or your thoughts on this from the article that you wrote. Have a conversation because SMEs also have a really close-knit network. They also have a broader network because they specialize in one area and they typically outsource other topics to other vendors. So think about that as you guys are communicating with somebody new. Again, are you nurturing your network by staying engaged with their content? Their content is important, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn. We're going to specifically talk about LinkedIn today. Other social media profiles are a little bit more intense, but LinkedIn is the place where professionally where you should be at all times. Now that you understand the activities that actually takes to build a network, think about who the hell am I networking with, right? So with that, with putting that into perspective, think about these top 3 categories of people. Strategic partners. These are people who complement your industry. So for example, a real estate agent and a divorce lawyer are fantastic strategic partners because when somebody's getting divorced, typically they're downsizing or upgrading depending on the agreement, right? But they're able to share clients throughout the timeline or the phase that that client is going through. So if someone's getting divorced, they're typically going to need a financial advisor. They're going to need somebody to sell their house. They're going to need somebody to work with on the lawyer front. Think about the life cycle of your client so that way you can network with people that also have a touch point with that same client. Subject matter experts. If you suck at something and you want to get better at it, reach out to those people. These people should be in your network so you can reference them, so you can showcase them, and so you can also identify ways to work with them because their audience is very broad. And then your current network. These are people that you've already built the know, the like, and the trust factor with. These people are the ones that are going to advocate for you when you're not in the room. You have to maintain that conversation. So as you're figuring out who to network with, it's got to go through these top 3 areas.
Can I give an example for them as a graduate student? Because they're not selling today, a lot of them. So you're a subject matter expert. I think Melissa's on here. I'm not sure if she's on here, but she's studying enzymes in beef cattle, right? So she worked when I was at AB Vista. I think we supported her master's thesis, for instance. And so use that network, that's going to advocate for you out of the room when you're looking for a job. AB Vista may not be hiring, for instance, but hopefully somebody, hears of a job and says, well, I know this really great graduate student coming out, connect with her. And that's kind of really what I'm trying to do is connect you guys with a great recruiting firm to help you find your new job. And then I'm also advocating for some of you outside of the room. So by connecting with me, but you're looking to get a job, where do you want to work at? So build that network around people that's in that industry, in that type of job that you want. Connect with them because they're going to hear about jobs that will come open and potentially help you get those jobs. So, but it's also, everybody knows me as an enzyme person or a cell lameness person, but if I'm not selling the right ingredient, I advocate for people who are selling the right ingredients. So you're advocating, we are going to become subject matter experts, or we're known as subject matter experts, but we don't know everything. So you need to have a good portfolio in your network of people who do know so you can help. And that's what makes stronger relationships.
And
That's technical.
And if it's okay that you don't know how to help just yet, but start being curious about those industries. Start asking the right questions, right? So especially if you guys, again, if you're not selling anything right now, but what you're doing is that you're giving people ways to help you, but you have to ask the question. You have to ask for that information. And now your network could potentially be, again, I'm talking about strategic partners, but if we're going on the student side, really people that you've worked with in the past. People, your previous managers. Go into a deeper dive into who they are, what they do, what makes them awesome, and then also share what your goals are. People genuinely want to help. And if you already built the know and the like factor with them and you're working on building the trust, ask. We're going to talk more about what those questions may or may not be. Okay, so like, for example, if you're reaching out to an SME, we're going to talk about how to communicate effectively and what questions to ask them. And you guys will also get this as well. So Jim, what have you done for me lately is not limited to what have I bought, sold from you lately. Correct. Yep. All right, so how to communicate effectively. So you're all students. I understand the fear of really trying to stand out, right, in order to get the job, in order to be seen as an SME in your field. So what you really want to start thinking about is making your name memorable. I'm not talking about going and giving somebody a call and like steamrolling the conversation or peacocking it at an event or a virtual event, right? None of you pretty much are on camera right now, which is a little disappointing because if I can see that you're focusing on the presentation and myself, I'm a plethora of introductions. So it would be great to be able to see you face to face. So I know that you are understanding the things that I'm talking about. Again, that's just common business professional practice. So as you are communicating effectively, you really want to make your name memorable. So this is giving yourself permission to engage in a way that's a bit vulnerable. Yes, the world is a dumpster fire right now. Everyone is struggling. How do you help? How do you provide value? How can you help them or provide an insight or have a good brainstorming session with that person? End a conversation with the future in mind. If you're ending the conversation with the future in mind, you've actually taken some thought into how you might be able to help that person, or if you want to continue and expand on a particular topic that you talked about, you know the next time you're going to talk to that person. So that's how you nurture the network. That's how you nurture the people that you have the pleasure and the privilege of having in your network. Plan structured next step conversations. If you have an introduction conversation with somebody on LinkedIn, or you've commented thoughtfully on one of their posts, you always want to make sure that you're ending the conversation with the future in mind. Or excuse me, you're planning the next structured next step conversation. So this person knows what you'd like to talk about, right? They can become a mentor halfway down the line. The other bit is recognizing storytelling opportunities. You've really got to recognize the fact that right now you may not have a ton of experience, and that's okay. But if you're able to help someone in an effective way, it allows you to tell the story of how you got there. Take a problem that you fixed. You're in school right now, I completely understand, but let me tell you something. There's a project that you have troubleshooted through. There's a lesson that you've learned. Educate that person and how you've been able to go through and manage your way through that conversation. Because at the end of the day, that's going to show the kind of character that you have, the kind of person that you are. Build a diverse network. Don't just stick to the people that you want to chat with. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because we all network with people that look like us. All of us do. It's a human behavior trait, right? I will challenge you to build a diverse network because it is so much more eye-opening. There's so much growth potential there. And the reason why it can develop a more complete and creative, unbiased views of issues is because when you trade information or skills with people who experiences differ from your own, you're now providing one another with a unique and exceptionally valuable resource. So start putting yourself out there, talking to all different kinds of groups. You guys are younger than me. I'm a millennial, so you guys are all way more inclusive than I was brought up to be. But so start continuing to do those activities because it's so important. Cool. Oh, Caroline, great question. How to deal with people that are not open to talk? So it depends on when they shut you down. Is it you're already on the call, or are they saying, no, I'm not available to talk right now? Because the way that you approach the question, usually you're giving them no reason to say no. If you're just saying, can we talk? But if you're saying, here's what I would like to talk about, I was hoping that you had 15 minutes to discuss. I'm really interested in X, Y, and Z. Why wouldn't anybody want to talk to you? They may not have the time, or they may ignore you. And you know what? If they ignore you, tough shit. There's 1,400,000 million people that could also go in and say that you can chat with.
Yeah, I think my question was more towards the people that they are not very open. Like, I mean,
We're
when
introverted
you,
scientists, I think.
yes. So like, oh my God, is my internet connection okay?
Yeah,
You're
we
okay,
can hear
Caroline.
you. You're
Good,
good.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so sometimes you ask question and they are like, yes, no, like, like it's so hard to have a conversation with them because they are not willing to open or to talk. So, like I'm usually making question and question and question, but like at some point you get tired of like yes, no answers. So,
So what would be your
and
goal? I would go into that conversation knowing that the majority of the people that you will be talking to are going to act like this, right? They're not very open. But if you go into that conversation understanding that the value that you like, or at least the goal that you have, is to answer a few questions on X, Y, and Z, you need to start thinking about how to cater to other people's personalities a little bit. Give them the opportunity to expand more on certain things, and they just need to be asked different questions. There's going to be a lot of troubleshooting, pulling information out of people. But I think that the way, and we can talk about some of the questions that you can ask a little bit more open-ended. go in there with expectations of, I want to ask this person and get X, Y, and Z, so that you're not set up for failure, essentially. You can't always,
I think it's also maybe how you sometimes ask the question. You ask them a yes, no answer.
Yeah.
No, but like
sometimes, it's
like
hard.
sometimes, yeah, for instance, very simple question like how was your day, for instance, and they just said fine, and then you are like, instead it's an open question, but like they answer
It's
just
not,
with one
no.
word.
It's not.
And
I
then
hate to tell you, love, but that's a very, closed off question. If you can say, what does your day look like today? Like, what have you been what kind of projects have you been working on today? That's more of an open-ended question instead of just saying, hey, how's your day going? Fine. Of course it's going fine. Why would they want to open it? That's a very, I understand where you're coming from. So on this slide here, these are DMBCs. These are deep, meaningful business conversation questions. These are the kinds of questions you should be able to ask somebody to really identify the meat and potatoes of their business. Look, at the end of the day, like, you guys know your group's introversion. The reason why people who are introverts are so much better at networking is because the one-on-one is very, very important. You guys are very thoughtful in the things that come out of your mouth. You're very thoughtful in emails. And I'm talking about like what comes out, there's thought behind it. I just word vomit. Okay. That's just my thing. But you guys are so much better at networking because you take the time to think of the answer, and it's thoughtful and intentional. In order for you to work
huge value of what she just told you about, being a scientist, how we're trained. And everybody says introverts a negative, sometimes a negative connotation, but scientifically trained or introvert personalities, big win there with what Ashley just told you. Now let's learn how to do it. Yeah.
My favorite clients are my introverts, because they will, the only difference in my world, the only difference between an introvert and an extrovert is the displacement of energy. I can go into a room, work a room, and feed off that energy and be at a high, right? You guys, who are more of the introverts, will get physically tired from going into a room with a lot of stimulation, with a lot of people, and then you gotta, like, I think it was to Beth's point, you gotta make the small talk, and it takes so much of the surface kind of conversation to have, and then you don't feel very authentic, which is not how you were trained. So to combat that, doing one-on-one conversations and learning how to navigate a conversation by, one, screwing up sometimes is the best way to kind of pull that Band-Aid off, or two, recognizing what the actual intention behind why you're calling this person, and then using it as a challenge to see if you can get the answer from them. Now, I'm not talking about going in saying, like, how'd you get started? Like, that's too much of an open-ended question. But if you ask them, when someone picks up the phone to call you, what problem are they having? Now you're asking the question, how do you fix a problem? And so they can answer that however they like, but it's a little bit more thoughtful behind it. And plus, if you were asked, how is your day? I'm pretty sure you'd say fine and let it go from that. So if your questions don't provoke thought, they are going to feel like it's not worth their time to answer. So think of the questions that you would need to feel fulfilled in that conversation that you're having, but then also provide resources and tools to also help when you ask the question, how can I help you? Now, to take that up another level, and I'm bouncing around a little bit, but just stick with me, folks. I gotcha. If you go into a conversation and say, how can I help you? Or let's have a chat. What you're really saying is, I did not take the time to think through what I can do for you, nor what you can do for me. So very much to these questions that we're talking about here. If you are going into the conversation, sometimes these people are they have a very high dominant personality too, but not externally. It's very much how they think. Bullet points, that's what I'm talking about. They prefer bullet points than fluff in an email. Sometimes going right into the conversation and saying, listen, I am a fan of your work. I really believe in what you're doing. I have a few questions on how you get started. Could I have 15 minutes of your time? And then you come up with questions that you're going to ask. You can even, again, depending on this person's personality, you guys know it better than I do, provide them the questions up front and give them a chance to answer via email if they're very difficult, if they're very, if they're hard to have a conversation with, or you haven't navigated it yet. So don't give them a reason to say no. You're providing all the resources and value you possibly can for a conversation to somebody that you admire. Any questions on that, folks? Casey, any comments on that?
No, I think that goes into a little bit about what Jim said. You know, I think some of the best technical people out there, it's not what you sold them today or recently. That's not how you should build your relationships. Even as graduate students, you can be that solution person as a graduate student or subject matter expert. But if you're not asking the right questions, like you said, what are your problems today? What are you working on today? You have no clue how you can bring value to them.
Right. You may have, honestly, the best conversations I've had have been the ones where, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. Because conversation and brainstorming and different perspectives and different views will spark inspiration and different thought-provoking activities. So even if you feel like you get nothing of value, of course you do. Everybody's different. Everyone brings something different to the table. You're not handing them anything, but you're providing thoughtful conversation. And because all of you are introverts, you have that in your soul, in your bones. So use that, triple down on those strengths that you have to have a very thoughtful conversation.
We're not all introverts, by the way.
Well,
But
I mean,
let's say most scientists probably are on the introvert spectrum. So,
well, Siobhan and Morgan and Jet are my extroverts today because I only see their beautiful faces in you, Case. I'm everybody else is introvert on the call. Clearly. Just kidding. I'm just being a pit. Okay.
Sorry, I have another question.
Sure, of course, I'm here.
For instance, I don't know if it's because of my culture. I'm a Latina woman, and we are a little bit open, and sometimes we cross the boundary. So
I've crossed about 15 of them on this call there, Caroline. So go ahead.
So like sometimes we like are too nosy, you know, like we like to talk about our personal lives, and I know, like, for instance, Americans are a little bit more reserved in some things. So, like, sometimes, like, I like to start the conversation with some more getting to know you, but I don't know if I'm crossing, like, the limit of people's private lives. So, for me, that was really hard, like, when I went to US, you know.
Yeah.
So, I don't know like what should be like normal.
So Carolyn, the fact that you're even bringing this up shows me that you are a deeply compassionate person. You should not have to change how you interact with somebody else when you genuinely care about them. Okay, so number one, that's a skill and a plus. If you read the room or read the person, hear what they have to say, right? So as you continue to have these conversations, you're going to be able to understand, or at least if you do like a Zoom call, see if they shift in their chair, if it's a little bit too much. But the more casual you come at it, you're making yourself vulnerable, to be quite honest with you, right? So the reason why, and I think I'm very much like you, Caroline. So the reason why I put the first, I have my bio read out, which always have the first slide of just fun things about me. I'm very self-deprecating, which alleviates the pressure of people feeling like they have to, you know, they can't ask questions, right? I try to put humor into my presentation so people feel more comfortable about something that can be very, very scary, which is networking and putting yourself out there. I empathize with that, which is why I try to make my environment as comfortable and as fun as possible. Do the same thing with the people that you have the chance and the pleasure and the privilege to talk to. People will typically mirror your energy, right? If you go into it and ask them, hey, when was the last time your uncle drank on Christmas? That's a little bit invasive, right? But if you ask questions, and it's funny, and you and I can have a conversation, but it's the goal would be is I don't ever want you to change your personality by being genuinely interested in somebody else. What I would suggest you do is give them an example. Apparently, they're coming for me. Sorry, you can hear sirens out there.
But I know where Caroline's coming from, because I was very closed off too, but I learned to be more like Caroline, because ultimately people buy from people. So you need to connect with them.
Yes. And sometimes
And
not everybody.
we're all selling, by the way. You're all selling
Yeah.
every time. It
Uh,
doesn't matter
yeah,
what
I mean,
graduate school, you're selling yourself,
But
you're
I
selling
also,
your research.
I gotta make it very, very, very clear to you, Caroline, is that I do not want you to change at all. I don't. And
thank
I understand Americans are dumb. We're very stupid sometimes, and I get it.
no, like, I mean, it was, I'm talking from my experience because my first job in the industry was technical service. So we needed to see customers and all, and traveling a lot. And like, I see people more than companies or brands, So I was like, when I was getting to visit customers, I wanted to know them more, like, as a person, rather than just go talk about products and that's it. Like, so I was feeling, I don't know if this is normal or not. So I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable because I'm like, maybe I'm not good for this job. I'm like,
No, you're so good for the job. Okay. I just need to just yell affirmations at you. There are so many wrong things in that statement and so many amazing good things in that statement. I understand, like, I had 18 jobs after graduation, 18, which means I had mergers and acquisitions and budget cuts. I worked my tail off for industries and it still didn't matter. I never got fired. My performance reviews were fantastic. It still did not matter when they were cutting, people. I was just a number. Worked at companies like eBay Enterprise. I worked at companies that gathered data from oil and gas. 18 jobs. The way that I combated that, or what was happening to me, was that I became very compliant. I became very compliant and I had no voice. And my personality was definitely not this. I was a very shy, very compliant person that kept my head down and did my work, because that's how I was brought up. The minute that I was given affirmation that I was enough was when I tripled down the fact that I could do what I could build a business. Remember that people, and especially in industries, yes, read the audience, understand who you're talking to, but do not ever cater to somebody else if they're uncomfortable. Obviously read the room and don't get so invasive, but do not change your curiosity into people, because if you triple down on that skill, you're going to go so far. 18 years I was compliant. No longer now, which is why it's so crazy what I'm doing right now. In the last 3 years, I've had more opportunities in the last 3 years than I've had in the last 18, because I listen to my voice. Do not change, ever.
And I was going to say, some of the major advice I got in my career was you need to tone it down.
Shut up.
Yeah, you need to shut up. No, be yourself. It's going to pay off in the long run.
Tone it down.
But also realize you're not going to be able to connect with everyone.
Right.
There are some swine nutritionists that I don't even bother calling on, for instance, because we just don't connect. We don't, we can't even have a conversation. So I pick the ones that I can influence and I start there. I don't, like Ashley said, 150. There are some people that don't make my list and not worth my time. And I hate to be that way, but it's nothing against them. It's just that we can't, it's not a healthy, it just doesn't work. And you have to realize your limitations. And, good companies and good teams balance people that have better connections with others. And that's why diversity in teams are so important, not, to have that connection with different types of people and different organizations.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Do not change ever.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much, my dear. All right, folks, we're going to go into kind of tools and resources to kind of help you navigate conversations. So I'm going to skip this slide for just a second, just because this is more towards people who are in business. However, there's a tool that I really, 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 really like, especially because you guys are kind of talking about like talking to new people. This is something called Crystal Knows. And what Crystal Knows does is that, remember we were talking about like knowing yourself and what kind of networker you may or may not be. This was really helpful for me to take something called the DISC assessment. And the DISC assessment is an emotional intelligence assessment that allows me to see on paper how I make my decisions. But it also allowed me to see like what I would never be good at, right? So it showed me things to avoid, whether in my new position or in a current position or whatever it may have been. So when I was searching for jobs, it gave me an idea of what I will always struggle with, right?
Can you scroll down if that's that personality graph that you're talking about?
It is. You know what? Let me share. Let me pull it up on my own screen. I'm going to share not this, but I'll share my LinkedIn real quick. If you just give me just a moment. So the reason why I like using that is because it allows. So this tool uses a plugin to show you so many messages. My goodness. Show you what kind of personality that person has and gives you ideas of how to communicate. So for example, if I look up Casey, there should be a little thing that pops open. It's called View Personality. And if I click on that and I need to talk to Casey about something, I need to set up a pitch to talk to Casey, or I need to call Casey so I can make a sales pitch or negotiate, schedule a meeting, and it gives you advice. Say this, do, don't. You guys see that? It's a great way for me to coach my clients. Okay, so I ran this on you so I knew how I could communicate effectively with you, because my personality can be a lot. But the goal would be, especially if you're reaching out to HR managers, subject matter experts, mentors, this tool allows you to, gives you a little bit of an extra oomph into communicating. It's called Crystal Knows. Morgan, you're going to get a link back to all of that, darling. So I'll have it for you. Yep, Patricia, you got it. Crushed it. Now for me, so if you go back to Casey's portfolio, Casey is as likely to be appreciated when others are stable, reliable, and cooperative. She's a supporter. Quick tip, appreciate the effort and offer support. So shaking her head yes, which means that it's gathering everything on the back end using AI to give a predicted DISC profile, and then it gives you great ways of being able to communicate with that person. As you get better at networking, you can start to see how to communicate with people with different personalities and troubleshoot through conversations. So for you, Caroline, too, this might be a good tool for you to kind of play around with. If you feel like your communication style is making somebody uncomfortable, this will give you a way to kind of go into it feeling a little more confident. Any questions?
Is that for free?
Nope, this is a tool. I think it's like $35 a month. But again, it's just to use if you're really, really going out there and networking hard. But it's great to use if you want to use it for a month and then just fire off a bunch of emails or conversation requests.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so no questions on this. So the reason why I kind of brought up utilizing Crystal Knows, again, communication style is very important. But at the end of the day, guys, as we're coming close into an end, you really just want to know yourself and know your audience, right? You really want to make sure that your name is memorable, that you make your name memorable. How do you want people to perceive you when you leave the conversation or leave the room? What emotion do you want them to engage in? Oh, she was really wonderful, helpful, thoughtful. She identified great ways to, help me with X, Y, and Z. Maybe you can, work on an internship with her, whatever it may have been. Plan your work and work in your plan. Plan structured next step conversations. You have a good conversation with somebody. Do not just leave it out in the open. And always, 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 always follow up. Always follow up. If you take anything from this presentation, do not wait for them to follow up. You follow up with them immediately after the phone call. Whether it's a recap of what you talked about, why you talked about it, all that jazz, you're the one that follows up. Catherine,
we got a good question here.
I'm about to say, how do you find networking opportunities if you don't know where to look? There's a really great website called Eventbrite and Meetup. And if you're looking at jobs or organizations that interest you, you want to follow the people that are of your importance on LinkedIn. Getting a good LinkedIn strategy is very helpful. Everybody take this name down. Brynne Tillman, BRYNNE Tillman, TILLMAN. Brynne Tillman specializes in LinkedIn. She puts out so much content on how to build your profile, how to pay attention. She's wonderful and magnificent. You guys are going to get a private shared webinar that she and I did to give you an idea of how to navigate through LinkedIn. So you'll have that by the end of this conversation today. So when you're looking for networking opportunities too, Catherine, you're looking for a community of weirdos. That's really what you're doing. Like if you're building a network, find a group and use different industry related keywords within Meetup as well as within Eventbrite and start looking around. Everything's virtual right now. You don't have to go anywhere. And just start the conversation. You're welcome, Catherine. Eventbrite and Meetup. Oh, and if you're in the Philadelphia area, which I don't think many of you are, TicketLeap also has local events too. So conferences, workshops, things like that. Most of them are free now. Majority of these events are free. Any questions?
I was going to say, a lot of you are at universities though too, and universities bring a lot of good content. It's just trying to find it. And I think universities are getting better at sharing some of this side activities they're doing and stuff. Graduate student organizations, your fellow graduate students at your university are going to be a key network for you as you develop your careers. Start there. This brings up the mind, as I mentioned last week, I don't have the final details. I'm not going to steal Marissa's thunder, but we are going to create small network groups. And so to help you work with a mentor, mentee, either graduate student level or, early professional, we're going to try to set those groups up as long as I get enough mentors to help. And that'd be a good way for you to practice.
Case, I'd be happy to be a mentor if you want me to join in those groups.
Cool.
Be happy to. Everybody on this call gets a complimentary 15 minutes with me. You will get that link. So if you want to go deep dive into anything, if you get any questions, or if you just want to chat about being inappropriate professionally, probably come to me. But I'd be happy to navigate through any conversation. You guys are all students. I know what it's like to not know how to network, especially in college, and what it means to do it now or at university. So please, please, please take advantage. I'd be happy to donate my time to any of you guys here.
And I also want to say, I think this goes back to, I think most of you know, Ashley's been my coach, right? And if we're young professionals on this call, or even graduate students, if you have the money in your budget, look at getting coaches, invest in yourself. I've had a lot of conversations about, mentoring programs and different things, but I remember signing up for a program, paying for it myself. My boss was like, why'd you pay for it? The company would have paid for it. And I'm like, sure, well, here's the price. He goes, well, maybe the company wouldn't have paid for it. But if it's worth value for you, you'll find the money. You'll invest in yourself. Courses, if you want to learn a new trait, don't wait for somebody to invest in you. You have to invest in yourself, and hiring coaches is probably one of the best things I've done for myself personally and professionally. And so kind of think about that, maybe it's not right this year or next year, but, make a budget for it when you start your careers of how much are you going to invest in yourself? Is that 4 books? You read 4 different books a month, or,
Yeah.
do you take these courses on, intellectual things, on personal development, and plan that into your budgets as you start your career? Is that I'm going to invest so much into my professional or personal development every year and budget for it.
But also shop around. There are some idiots out there that are coaching. And they have to be a good fit for you personally. And don't let anyone ever, weasel you into buying something that you're not 100% okay with, right? So also there's some great tools online called Teachable and Trainual and things like that, where these amazing coaches give out these training programs without working with them directly one-on-one. So look at your options, but also very much to Casey's point, like invest in yourself. I may not be a good fit. I know you're trying to plug me, but I may not be a good fit for everybody. But I sure as hell know people that might be. So do yourself a service and make sure that the things that you want to get better in, you get a coach or a mentor, or you utilize a community that can help you get there. Because it's not going to be taught to you at university.
I think we have a good question from YA. What could really be the reason when people you are trying to network with never replies to your emails?
I mean, that is a common law of life. They won't respond.
Yeah.
They may not be interested. Okay. Or
just move on. Yeah. Move on. Wes, can you on-mic yourself? And I want to make sure, are you following up to his question or another thing?
Well, yeah.
No, that was more about, talking about putting a budget aside for professional development, some of that, something to ask about when you're interviewing for different positions as you're coming out of grad school, that usually a lot of these companies have a budget set aside for that. Ask some of those questions. Is that something that's available? Is it not? Is it on me? Is the company going to help me with that? Do I get to pick? Is it something the company just does? For example, like at Zinpro, we do Granger. But is there opportunities outside of that I could go explore?
That's a great point, Wes.
Yeah, and every company is different. So I've worked with, enough companies in my career. Calmback had me take the Dale Carnegie program, probably the best thing I've ever done. They invested in that right away for me. I go to like AB Vista, we had a lot of internal, but we also hired outside consultants to do team trainings more so, but also open to that I could get outside different coaches or courses or different things I wanted to. Then you go to DSM and they like to have everything internally DSM focused. And to me, that's when I said, I need a different viewpoint. I need to make sure I'm growing myself and, limitations on that. And then we had budget cuts. So we weren't even allowed to have personal development training because of budget cuts. So that's when I said, well, I'm going to invest in myself, and glad I did, because, look at where I'm at because of downsizing and budget cuts. So I'm doing great. Thanks, DSM. So I love it. So, but if I didn't invest in myself and I didn't start the journey, I would have been feeling very differently about what happened when I got downsized. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm saying, work on that journey, work on your mindset, work on your networking. So if you do get cut or you can't get a position, how are you going to get there? And it's your network that gets you your first job. A lot of times it's your network that gets you new jobs. And it's also a network that helps you sell when you're out there and be successful. So it just depends on what stage of life or your career you are, what part of your network you pull from.
And there's something to be said about having people in your corner that will fight for your honor. I know that sounds so, teenage, Twilight book, but let me tell you something, like the best experiences I've ever had truly have been in the last 3 years when I I get these emails from amazing partners that I haven't spoken to in about 3 months that have advocated for me in another group because they knew that what I had was of value. Or they said something kind on some kind of social media platform that I can use and retain for my own feedback. But you are building an army. You're not building an audience. You're not building a fan base. You're building an army. Who do you want as your soldiers? Who do you want as your general or your lieutenant? But that means when you run this army, you have to fight for them 4 times over. For every 10 gives is an ask. So as you're building up this network, you are building an army, a group of champions that will fight for you just as you will fight for them. Question from Mohammed, my dear. You can also spark their interest in your success and gain an unofficial mentor during the interview by asking questions. What does it take to be successful here? Perfect question. Great question. I agree, Mohammed. Crushed it.
All right. Is there any other last minute questions? We're out of time. So any last thoughts you want to leave us with, Ashley?
Last thoughts is, remember, guys, you are valuable. Your time is valuable, and the things that you do and the skills that you have are valuable. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Do not let anyone make you feel like who you are is not valuable. It took me a long time to recognize that I was enough. And in this competitive world, going out through jobs, you are enough. And the things that you say are enough, and the values that you keep are enough. So get frustrated, change how you interact with people if you need to find the job, but don't ever feel that you aren't enough. Because at the end of the day, the people that you have in your corner are going to advocate for you, and they're going to help you recognize that you are enough.
Yes. Can't agree more. Don't wait till you're 40 to realize that.
I mean, we got.
But
you'll be an alcoholic by 35 and a coffee addict by 32. Yeah. I mean, I'm working on it.
Yeah. So, I will share all the links that Ashley was talking about, resources, and an email follow up to this, and to get that out to you guys. And so I think this. Oh, thank you, Ashley. It was wonderful.
So super.
So,
I'm glad you guys had fun. I had fun. It's a Friday. Everyone is going to hang out. But by the way, Siobhan, I'm going to get you a $20 gift card for Amazon at some point because you stayed on the entire time. Jack, you're just a cool man. I'm just letting you know, buddy, that you and I will have a sip of whiskey at some point because you look like Santa Claus and it makes me very happy. It makes me very, very happy. But Siobhan, do me a favor, honey, send me an email. I'm going to get you a $20 gift card to Amazon, okay? Because you crushed it.
Great. Thank you so much. This was a really wonderful webinar. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome, darling. But yeah, that's what you get. See, if all of you just put your cameras on.
I'm sorry. That would be my fault. That would be our fault.
Did you keep everybody off?
But guys, don't forget, you've got 15 minutes with Ashley Owens if you want to put this to good use.
Yes, 15 minutes. You get an email. Well, shoot. I'm just sorry about that.
And you also get to vote on your favorite speakers for the end of the year. So if you enjoyed this so much, don't forget she can come back at the end of the program. It's your pick.
And guys, we can talk about whatever you want to. It doesn't have to be networking. It could be entrepreneurship. It could be how to start a business. It can be women in business. It could be Marvel comics, like whatever you want. I'm a plethora of knowledge on random things that don't make sense.
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye, folks.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much.